My girlfriend hid her pain from me. Her mom's texts were pure venom. We chose to fight for her freedom until Susan banged on our door and it all fell apart. I met Emily during freshman orientation at the University of Portland. Her laugh, bright and unfiltered, pulled me in like a magnet. We were both 19, navigating the chaos of college life, and by sophomore year, we were inseparable. She was my world, the kind of person who made even rainy Portland days feel warm. We'd spend weekends hiking in Forest Park, sharing coffee at Stumptown, dreaming about our future. I thought I knew everything about her, until one night shattered it all. It was a Friday, mid-semester. Emily went to a party at a dorm near campus. I stayed home, cramming for a midterm. She texted me at 2 a.m., her words frantic, barely coherent. "Jake, come get me. Something happened." My heart dropped. I raced to the dorm, my old pickup rattling through the dark streets. When I found her, she was curled up on a bench outside, her mascara streaked, her eyes hollow. She wouldn't look at me. In the car, she broke down. Sobs racked her body as she whispered the truth. She'd been attacked at the party. Some guy, too drunk to care, had cornered her. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Rage and helplessness churned in my gut. I wanted to find him, make him pay, but Emily just clung to my arm, begging me to take her home. I did, holding her until she fell asleep, her tears soaking my shirt. A week later, she dropped another bomb. She was pregnant. My mind reeled. Pregnant? From that night, I couldn't process it. We sat on our couch in our tiny Portland apartment, the rain pounding outside. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were distant. "I'm keeping the baby, Jake. It's a blessing in disguise." A blessing? I stared at her, my mouth dry. How could she call this a blessing? Every time I looked at her, I saw that night, the pain she'd endured. It wasn't fair. None of this was. I loved Emily, but the thought of raising a child that wasn't mine twisted something deep inside me. I felt sick, guilty for even thinking about leaving. She was the victim, not me. But the weight of it, diapers, debt, a kid tied to her trauma felt like a noose around my neck. We were college kids, barely scraping by on scholarships and part-time jobs. A baby would drown us. I tried to talk to her, but she shut down, repeating that it was her choice. Her voice was firm, but her hands trembled. Something didn't add up. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Emily slept beside me, her breathing uneven. Why was she so determined to keep this baby? Was it her faith? She'd grown up in a strict Catholic family, but she'd never been that devout. Or was it something else? I needed answers, but every time I brought it up, she'd pull away. I felt like I was losing her, losing us. I had to figure out what was driving her, even if it meant crossing a line. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. Emily was still asleep, her face peaceful for the first time in days. I slipped out of our apartment, the Portland drizzle soaking my hoodie. I needed to talk to someone, anyone, who could help me make sense of this mess. My mind was a storm love for Emily, clashing with the dread of a future I didn't sign up for. I drove to Stumptown Coffee, where my best friend Matt worked as a barista. Matt's been my rock since high school. He's the guy who'd crack a joke at a funeral, but he always listens when it counts. The cafe was buzzing, the smell of roasted beans thick in the air. I slid into a corner booth, and Matt joined me on his break, wiping his hands on his apron. "You look like hell, Jake," he said, raising an eyebrow. I spilled everything: Emily's assault, the pregnancy, her insistence on keeping the baby. My voice cracked as I admitted I didn't know if I could stay. Matt leaned back, sipping his espresso. "Man, that's heavy." He paused, his usual grin gone. "If it were me, I'd bail. You're 19, Jake. You didn't ask for this. A kid? That's a life sentence, especially one tied to that." His words hit hard, echoing my darkest thoughts, but they also felt cold, like he didn't get how much I loved her. I nodded, muttered a thanks, and left, my coffee untouched. Matt's advice was logical, but it didn't sit right. Back in my truck, I called Chris, a teammate from the university's basketball club. We weren't as tight as me and Matt, but Chris had a way of seeing things differently. I caught him on his way to the gym, his voice muffled by the sound of Portland traffic. I laid it all out again, my hands shaking on the wheel. Hypothetically, I lied, not ready to admit it was my reality. Chris didn't buy it. "Jake, I know this ain't hypothetical," he said, his tone gentle but firm. He took a deep breath. "If you love her, you stay. She's already carrying the weight of what happened. Leaving would crush her. And that kid, it didn't ask to be here, but it deserves a shot. Kids without dads, they struggle, man. You've seen the stats." Chris was raised by a single mom, so his words carried weight. He wasn't preachy, just real. I thanked him, my throat tight, and hung up as I pulled into our apartment's parking lot. I sat in the truck, rain drumming on the windshield. Matt said run, Chris said stay. Both made sense, but neither felt right. My head spun with their voices, Emily's trembling hands, the image of a baby I couldn't picture loving. I loved Emily with everything I had, but this, it was bigger than us. I stared at our apartment window, the curtains drawn tight. I realized then that no one else could decide this for me. Not Matt, not Chris, not even Emily. I had to figure out what I could live with, what I could carry. But how? I stepped out into the rain, my sneakers splashing in puddles, and headed inside. Emily was awake, sitting on the couch, her eyes searching mine. I wanted to ask her why, to beg for answers, but I just hugged her instead. The truth would have to wait. The air in our Portland apartment felt thick, like the walls were closing in. Emily sat on the couch, her knees pulled to her chest, staring at the rain streaking down the window. I'd spent all day replaying Matt and Chris's words, but they were just noise now. I needed to talk to her, really talk, no matter how much it hurt. I loved her, but I couldn't keep pretending this wasn't tearing me apart. I grabbed 2 mugs of tea from the kitchen, set one in front of her, and sat down. "Emily," I said, my voice low, "we need to talk about the baby." Her eyes flit to mine, guarded, like she'd been waiting for this. She clutched the mug, her knuckles pale. "What's there to talk about, Jake? I'm keeping it. You know that." Her voice was sharp, but it wavered, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "I don't understand why," I said. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about a kid, a life. I'm not sure I can do this, Em. Not when it's not mine." The words felt like knives, slicing through the silence. Emily's face crumpled, but she didn't cry. "You think I don't know that?" she snapped. "You think this is easy for me? I didn't ask for this, Jake, but it's my body, my choice." She leaned forward, her eyes blazing. "I grew up in a house where every Sunday was Mass, where my mom would quote scripture about the sanctity of life. I can't just end it. It's wrong." Her voice broke, and I saw the weight of her upbringing pressing down on her, heavy as the Oregon rain. I ran a hand through my hair, frustration boiling over. "I get that, okay? I know your family's intense, but what about us? What about our life? We're drowning in student loans, barely making rent. A baby's what, 15 grand a year? And that's before daycare, diapers, all of it. We're 19, Em. How do we do this?" My voice cracked, and I hated how desperate I sounded. I wasn't just fighting her. I was fighting the image of a future where I resented her, resented a kid who didn't deserve it. She stood up, pacing the tiny living room. "You're making this about money? About you?" Her words stung, sharp and accusing. "I'm the one who went through it, Jake. I'm the one who feels him every time I close my eyes. And now you're telling me you can't handle it? That I'm selfish for wanting to keep this baby?" Her hands shook, and I wanted to reach for her, but I stayed rooted to the couch. "I'm not saying you're selfish," I said, my voice softer now. "I'm saying I'm scared. Scared I'll fail you. Scared I'll look at that kid and see him." Emily froze, her back to me. The room was silent except for the rain. When she turned, her eyes were wet, but her jaw was set. "If you can't handle it, then go," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I won't beg you to stay." My chest tightened, like someone had sucked the air out of the room. I wanted to scream that I loved her, that I'd do anything for her, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I stood, my hands clenched. "I'm not going anywhere yet," I said, "but we're not done talking." She turned away, her shoulders hunched, and I knew I'd pushed too far. I grabbed my jacket and stepped into the rain, the cold biting my skin. I needed air, space to think. Emily's words echoed in my head, her choice, her body. But what about me? What about us? I loved her, but love wasn't enough to fix this. Something was off, something she wasn't telling me. I had to know what it was, even if it broke us. The rain hadn't stopped in days, mirroring the storm in my head. Emily and I were barely speaking after our fight. We'd go through the motions: dinner, dishes, small talk about classes, but the air in our Portland apartment was heavy, like a fog we couldn't shake. Her insistence on keeping the baby gnawed at me. It wasn't just her faith. I knew her too well. There was something else, something she was hiding. I couldn't keep circling the same arguments, getting nowhere. I needed answers, even if it meant crossing a line I couldn't uncross. It was late, past midnight. Emily was asleep on the couch, her phone on the coffee table, screen glowing faintly. My heart pounded as I stared at it. I'd never snooped before. Trust was everything to us, but desperation clawed at me. If I didn't understand why she was so set on this, I'd lose her or lose myself. I grabbed the phone, my hands shaky, and punched in her passcode, our anniversary date. The screen unlocked, and I swallowed hard, guilt already creeping in. I scrolled through her texts, my eyes darting to her sleeping form. Her chat with Lauren, her best friend, was mostly memes and gossip about a guy Lauren was seeing. Nothing about the baby, the assault, or me. I checked her group chat with her parents, Richard and Susan. My stomach twisted as I saw a thread from the week after the party. Susan's name glowed at the top, her message a wall of text that made my blood run cold. "You brought this on yourself, Emily," it began. "Parading around in those tight dresses, showing off your navel piercing. I warned you about those parties, about the kind of attention you draw. And now look pregnant, disgraced. You think this is a coincidence? God's punishing you for your vanity." I froze, my breath catching. Susan's words were venom, sharp and unrelenting. She went on, blaming Emily's makeup, her flirtatious laugh, even her childhood charm for tempting men. My hands shook as I read the worst part. "You will keep this child. It's your only path to redemption. Abort it, and you're damned forever. This baby will teach you to stop acting like a harlot." I leaned against the kitchen counter, bile rising in my throat. Susan wasn't just religious, she was cruel, twisting Emily's trauma into some sick moral lesson. The message ended with a final jab. "You deserve this. Don't make it worse." There was no reply from Emily, just a call log showing an 11-minute conversation with Susan right after the text. I pictured Emily, alone, sobbing as her mother tore her apart. My anger flared not just at Susan, but at myself for not seeing it sooner. I kept scrolling, hoping for more context. Another message from Susan, days later, doubled down. "Your father and I expect you to do the right thing. We're watching you." Emily's responses were short, submissive. "I understand, Mom. I'll do what's right." It hit me like a punch. Emily didn't want this baby. She was trapped, crushed under her her parents' judgment, their toxic control dressed up as faith. She was 19, trying to survive a nightmare, and her own mother was making it worse. I locked the phone and set it down, my mind racing. Emily stirred on the couch, her eyes fluttering open. "Jake?" she mumbled, voice thick with sleep. I forced a smile, my heart hammering. "Just getting water," I lied, grabbing a glass to cover my tracks. She nodded, drifting back to sleep. I stood in the dark kitchen, the rain drumming outside, wrestling with what I'd found. Confronting her now would mean admitting I'd betrayed her trust, but keeping quiet felt like betraying her all over again. I loved her, but this was bigger than love. Emily was carrying a weight I couldn't fully grasp: trauma from the assault, guilt from her parents, fear of eternal damnation. I wanted to protect her, to scream at Susan for her cruelty, but I was stuck. If I told Emily what I knew, she might shut me out. If I didn't, I'd be complicit in her pain. I sank into a chair, staring at her sleeping form. The truth was out there now, raw and ugly. I just didn't know how to face it, or if we could survive it. For weeks, I carried the truth like a stone in my chest. Emily's pain, her mother's cruelty, the baby, it all festered, unspoken. I tried to be there for her, cooking her favorite pasta, driving her to classes at the University of Portland, holding her when nightmares woke her. But every time she mentioned the baby, her voice flat and rehearsed, I saw Susan's venomous texts. Emily wasn't choosing this. She was chained to it. I couldn't stay silent anymore, even if it cost us everything. It was a quiet Saturday evening in our apartment, the Portland skyline dim through the rain-soaked windows. I'd made Emily's favorite lemon ricotta pancakes for dinner, hoping to soften what was coming. We ate in silence, the clink of forks loud in the tense air. When she smiled, thanking me, I knew it was now or never. I cleared my throat, my hands sweaty. "Em, we need to talk. About everything." Her fork froze mid-air, her eyes narrowing. "What do you mean, Jake?" I took a deep breath, the words heavy. "I went through your phone. I saw the texts from your mom." Her face paled, a mix of shock and betrayal. "You what?" she whispered, her voice sharp. I pushed on, heart racing. "I know you don't want this baby. I read what Susan said, how she blamed you, told you to keep it to redeem yourself. It's not your choice, Em. It's hers, and it's killing you." My voice cracked, but I kept going. "You don't have to do this. You deserve to be free." Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. She set her plate down, hands trembling. "You had no right," she said, her voice low, raw. "But you're not wrong." The admission hung between us, heavy and fragile. She sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "I feel it every day, Jake. That night, that monster, this baby, it's like he's still here, inside me. But my mom, my dad, they'll disown me. They'll say I'm damned. I'm so scared." Her sobs broke free, and I knelt beside her, pulling her close. I held her as she cried, her body shaking against mine. "You're not damned," I said fiercely. "You're not what they say you are. This is your life, Em, not theirs. If you want to end this, I'm with you. We'll do it together." She looked up, eyes red, searching mine. "You mean that?" she asked, voice barely audible. I nodded, my throat tight, every word. The next morning, we sat at the kitchen table, laptops open. Emily's hands shook as she searched for clinics, her resolve wavering under the weight of years of guilt. I squeezed her hand. "We've got this," I said. "We found Planned Parenthood in downtown Portland, a place with good reviews and a reputation for care." Emily called, her voice steady but soft, and booked an appointment for the following week. When she hung up, she exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for months. I watched her closely, checking for doubt. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice gentle. She met my eyes, her jaw set. "I've never been surer. I can't live like this, Jake. I can't love this baby, not after everything. I want it gone." Her honesty cut deep, but it was real, raw, hers. I nodded, pride swelling in my chest. She was fighting for herself, maybe for the first time. We spent the week preparing, researching the procedure, planning how to pay the $500 fee with our savings. Emily was quiet, but there was a spark in her I hadn't seen since the assault. She was scared, yes, but determined. I was too of the procedure, of her parents finding out, of what this meant for us. Susan's texts haunted me. I knew she'd come for Emily if she learned the truth, but I pushed it down, focusing on her. We were in this together, no matter what came next. The appointment loomed, a beacon and a storm, and I prayed we were ready. The day of Emily's appointment was gray, Portland's rain relentless. I drove her to Planned Parenthood, my hands tight on the wheel. She stared out the window, silent but steady. The procedure was quick, but Emily was pale, lightheaded when it was done. I helped her to the truck, my arm around her waist. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded, a small smile breaking through. "I feel lighter." At home, I tucked her into bed, her favorite blanket draped over her. I sat beside her, relief mixing with dread. We'd done it, but the fallout was coming. That afternoon, Emily's phone buzzed on the nightstand. Susan's name flashed on the screen. My stomach dropped. Emily froze, her eyes wide. "She'll keep calling," she whispered. She answered, her voice shaky. "Hi, Mom." Susan's voice was sharp, demanding why Emily sounded off, asking about the baby. Emily stammered, "I'm just tired, Mom. Need rest." I heard Susan's tone shift, suspicious. "I'm coming over," she snapped, and hung up. Emily's face crumpled. "She knows something," she said, panic rising. I took her hand, my jaw tight. "I'll handle it. Rest." When Susan's car pulled up, I steeled myself. She stormed to the door, her face twisted with fury. "Where's my daughter?" she demanded. I blocked the doorway, my voice low. She's resting. You need to leave. Susan's eyes narrowed, spotting Emily's painkillers on the counter. What did you do? She hissed, pushing past me. Emily appeared, pale but defiant, in the hallway. Mom, stop! Susan's voice rose, venomous. You killed your baby? You're a disgrace, Emily. After everything you've done, you spit in God's face. I stepped between them, my blood boiling. Get out, I said, my voice cold. You've hurt her enough. You don't get to control her anymore. Susan's face reddened, but I didn't budge. Leave, or I'm calling the cops. She spat a final insult, calling us sinners, and left, the door slamming behind her. A year later, Emily and I sat on our balcony, the Portland sun warm on our faces. She'd started therapy, working through the trauma, her assault, her parents' cruelty. Susan and her father tried reaching out once, begging forgiveness, but Emily wasn't ready. She'd cut them off, choosing herself. Our relationship wasn't perfect. Some nights the past crept in, heavy and dark, but we fought for each other, building something stronger. Emily laughed more now, her real laugh, the one I fell for. We didn't need her parents or anyone else. We had us. One morning, the doorbell rang. Emily glanced at me, confused. My heart sank, fearing Susan again. I opened the door, ready to fight. To my shock, it was Lauren, Emily's old friend, holding a coffee from Stumptown. I heard what happened, she said softly. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. Emily's eyes welled up, but she smiled, stepping forward. They hugged, and I felt a weight lift. Maybe healing was possible, one step at a time. Emily looked at me, her hand in mine, and I knew we'd be okay no matter what came next.